All right. So I was doing 42 in a 35 zone.
Yeah.
42 in a 35 zone. It was a motorcycle cop. And so he pulls me over. I'm sitting there. He's got my license. He's running at the whole 9 yards. And to make a real long story short, he kept calling and calling and calling, and it took a long time. I've been pulled over before. It doesn't take that long, and I'm thinking, what the hell is going on? Next thing I know, he comes over and he asked me to put my hands on the wheel, on the steering wheel. He says, "I'm going to handcuff you," and I said, "Okay, I'll do whatever you want." So he handcuffed me, and then went back to the radio a little bit more, and then several cruisers showed up, and he says, "We're going to arrest you. There's an outstanding warrant for you." I said, "Oh, what's it for?" He couldn't tell me. And again, to make another long story short, they booked me into the jail, and I'm thinking, they took me downtown Columbus, and I'm thinking, well, I'll get out of this. You know, they'll find their error, and I'll be out of here by the end of the day. And they transported me over to the county jail, and that was really unique. I'd never been in jail before. I mean, my father was a police officer.
Oh God.
And my oldest son just left the police force. He's been a police officer for many years. So I know how to talk to police officers. I wasn't rude, I promise you that. I wasn't arrogant. I just said, "Sir, yes, sir," and kept my mouth shut. But they transported me over to the county jail, and I still don't know why I'm here. And so I go into this room, and it's probably 10 times the size of my office. And there was, 30 people there, 40 people, 40 men in this one jail cell. And they didn't have any bunks. I had to sleep on the floor the first night. I had to sleep on concrete and just a little thin mattress. Next day I get up and still no word, don't know why I'm there. Nobody's telling me what's happening. I think I got a phone call. Oh, I got a phone call when I was initially booked. So they walking into that environment was like, it was very unique for me. I've never been in that kind of environment, and it was very hostile and very hostile. I mean, these guys wouldn't give me the time of day. Nobody would talk to me. I kept asking, what's going on? How does this work? When do we get fed? All kinds of questions. And it was just a really bad environment. I felt like I was going to get my ass kicked at any moment. And I come to find out, this was not a short-term facility. There were some guys in this jail cell, in this group cell, that were in there for, that one of them, I think, was in there for he was in there 9 months at that time. And there were some people in there for 6 months and 7 months. These were some, what I would call kind of hardcore. It's not penitentiary stuff, but it's a jail. So I had a book with me. I had, that day, I went to the mailbox, and in the mailbox was this book called The Fall. You Were There, It's Why You're Here, by Michael Rakia. I had ordered this from England. It wasn't an Amazon delivery. It was from England. They weren't published over here at the time. And so I got the book. I was excited as hell. I've been waiting to read this book. So I took it out of the envelope, threw it in my back seat. So that's what happened was, when the officer handcuffed me and they came to transfer me to another car, I said, "Can I take my book?" Okay. I later found out, according to my lawyer, my son, my dad, that me carrying this book through the judicial system never should have been allowed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That would have been confiscated. But somehow I carried this book with me all the way through the process. That's critical. And I was looking in here. This is one of the inmates. He put his information in there because he wanted me to reach out to his dad, because he wasn't able to get a hold of his dad. So at 3 o'clock in the morning, when I finally got released, the first phone call I made was to this guy's dad to let him know he was okay and he was in jail. Okay. And then this back here, this is one of the guys that I made friends with eventually. His name is Righteous. That's his number. He's a tattoo artist. So he promised that anytime I wanted, I just call him up, go over to his house, he'll give me a free tattoo. So I got that going for me. Okay. So first day, I'm in hell, right? Because nobody wants anything to do with me. I'm the odd man out. I am by far the oldest dude in here. There are some hardcore criminals in there. They're not talking to me, but they're talking to each other and, chit chatting and stuff. So as the days progress, I read the book, right? And I get to a part in the book where it talks about how you change the world. How you change the world. And you do it through light. And there's a process that they go through in here, and I've used it in a lot of my workshops, my in-person workshops, where what you do is you envision coming down through your central channel, your connection to the creator. You envision coming down through that central channel, gold light of the creator, and it comes in and it fills up your field. And then you take that light and then you take it and you shoot it out your heart chakra and you fill up the room that you're in. Now, in the workshops that I do, I take people through it and I take it beyond the room. We go to the building that we're in. We go to the city that we're in. We go to the state that we're in. We go to the country that we're in. We go to the world that we're in. And it's palatable. You can feel the energy change in that room as 30, 40, 50, 60, 100 people are sitting there channeling gold light out of their heart chakra into the world. Okay. That's how it works. Now I read it, I'm in prison, I'm in jail, and I read this and I thought, I got to do something. I can't keep going like this. So I practiced it and I just sat there and I just visualized the light coming in, the light going into the jail, the light filling up the jail, the light filling up the inmates that are in there. And lo and behold, little by little, the energy began to shift and it began to crack. And if you've ever been in jail, here's the key. Here's what they do. Lights are on 24 hours a day. The brightest fluorescent lights you've ever seen are always on. They never turn them off. TV is on 24 hours a day. There was one TV set into the wall, kind of like behind plexiglass, so they couldn't break it. And somebody's always watching something. Wheel of Fortune, The Price is Right, whatever the movie is on, whatever the channel is, people are sitting there watching it. And so you're either watching TV, talking to somebody, or you're laying in your bunk. And that was life for literally 24 hours a day. So at no time did I ever get a chance to really sleep because there's always sound going on, always noise going on. And it's a hostile environment from that perspective alone. And then you compile that with all the different personalities that you're dealing with, and they have, a lot of them have psychological problems where they could snap like that. You say the wrong thing, look at them the wrong way or whatever, they just lose their shit. Okay, so I do that. I start that process and I just keep pouring light into that jail cell. And people are coming in and going out. And the process is when you get released over the loudspeaker, they'll say your name. They'll say, Smith, roll it up. And what you're supposed to do is roll up your little sleeping mat, take all your plastic utensils and stand by the front door and wait for an officer to come and get you. And they would do that 3 or 4 or 5 people at a time. So during each day, like I think this is Monday, this happened. On Tuesday, they called out certain names and they said, you're going to court. And there'd be 4 or 5 people, they go to court. A few hours later, they come back. A few hours later, their name would come out, Smith, Jones, whatever, roll it up. And then they take those people out and exit. Well, for 4 days, my name never got called. Never. I didn't even know if anybody knew I was in there. And finally, they had gotten a lawyer to go in and get me, to interview me. And they could see I was I was in physical trouble. I had just been diagnosed with AFib and I didn't have my medicine. I didn't have my supplements. I hadn't managed it yet. And my heart was beat down on my chest. A lot of stress. The stress in that environment was the most unbelievable experience I've ever had, because you don't know what's happening to you. You don't know anything about your future. You don't know what's happening to your case. You don't have any loved ones around to support you. You're in a hostile environment, and you're in an environment that never shuts down. Okay. So as I'm in there, I submitted a request for a doctor, to see a doctor, and 24 hours later, they came and got me. Okay, so now this is Wednesday. This big old sheriff, and he's bigger than me. He had to be 6'4", 6'5". He had to be 350 pounds, built like a shithouse, man. I mean, an intimidating figure. He comes to the front door of the jail cell, and he calls my name, and I'm like, oh, what? And he says, I'm here to take you to get a medical assistance. I said, okay. So he had to walk me on the other side of the facility. And so while we're walking, I started talking to him. I said, how are you? Where are you from? You got any kids? Are you married? And we just had a casual conversation. And we got into the elevator and went to the basement of the other building. And as the elevator stopped, he didn't open the door yet. He just looks at me. He says, you don't belong here, do you? I said, well, I don't think I do. I don't know why I'm in here. He said, yeah, it's easy to get in here, and sometimes it's hard to get out. So watch yourself. I said, okay. And so he was really kind to me, very kind to me. And he stayed with me while I got examined, and they kept me for several hours. They did an EKG, make sure I wasn't going to lose my shit, and put me in isolation for a little bit. And when I was in that isolation chamber, I laid down on a wood bench and actually got rest for a little bit. That's the only sleep I had while I was in there. And so he came and got me. Same guy came and got me. And we chatted on the way back and everything, and had a good conversation. And he dropped me back off and wished me the best. He says, I hope you get out here soon. I said, thanks, I appreciate it. So that was my experience with the police officers inside the facility. And so I continued my meditation when I was back in the jail. And I noticed people were coming up to me now, talking to me, asking me my name, asking me questions, having a conversation. And they would at food time, they would come over and they would bring trays in, like a hospital tray, and each one of us would get a hospital tray. And I would notice right away that first of all, the food was horrific. It wasn't fit for, I wouldn't feed it to my dog. Okay. And, but I noticed right away people would eat, and they'd eat really fast. And then they look around and see if they could get something else to eat. If I didn't eat my hot dog, I'd give it to somebody, or, and I was happy to give my food away because it was trash. I wasn't eating. But I noticed that they all went to sleep. Like within 30 minutes, the whole room would go down after every meal. My guess is they were drugging the food. Okay. Now I can't prove that, but circumstances certainly showed it. Okay. And that keeps you calm. So the food was substandard. The food was drugged. The environment was hostile, always on, always active. And is just cracking people's psyches. I could see it right before me. But now, to make a real long story short, like I said, this went over 5 days. Eventually what happened is that they got together as a group, and they talked one guy into relinquishing his bunk so that I could have a bottom bunk, because somebody noticed that I was having difficulty getting in a top bunk. Finally, a bunk opened, and it was a top bunk, and I had trouble getting up there. And so as a group, they got together and sorted it out and gave me a bottom bunk. Think about this. Now, this is an environment where I walk in and it's hostile. Now they're starting to change the way they're living and organizing in order to accommodate me, because I'm the old man in the group. Next thing, one of the biggest things in this area was the commissary dollars. And people would, get their relatives to drop so much money in. And then there was a commissary every couple days, and you could put down what you wanted. And if you had the dollars, they would bring it in. So people would get things like Hostess Twinkies or Ho-Hos or, their treat, something that was a real treat to them. But their family had to pay for it. And it was very exorbitant prices. Like a Ho-Ho or a Ding Dong was $5. And these people were poor. I could tell that by, most of them were very, very poor, and their families probably had a hard time coming up with that kind of money. And so the next thing that happened was a group of them noticed I wasn't eating, and they began to share their commissary food with me. Their most precious resources. Things that were so hard to come by for them because it was time restricted, access restricted, money restricted. They shared it with me because they were worried I wasn't eating. I kept pumping that light into that room every day. And it got softer and softer and softer and softer. And it became a hospitable environment where people are worried about me sleeping. They're worried about me eating, So finally, on Friday, my name came over the speaker and I was going to go to court. So that's an experience because they put me on a bus. They had to take me from the county jail back to the city. And there's a series of holding cells in the courthouse. And for some reason, my courtroom was at the very top. And so I go into the first holding cell, and it's got 100 men in there, just jammering, talking. Most of these guys all knew each other. I felt like the odd man out, like I couldn't carry on a conversation. And then they would break us into half, and then they take us to a 50-man holding cell, and then a 25-man holding cell, and then a 20-man holding cell, and a 10-man holding cell, and all this kind of stuff. And finally, I'm down to by myself. I'm getting ready to go in the courtroom, and I'm going to rip the judge an asshole because I want to know why I've been held. I still do not know.
There was no.
At this point, I still do not know why I had been arrested and put in jail. Okay. My lawyer comes in and says, we're done. You're free to go. I said, what? Yeah, they're releasing you. I said, why am I in here? I don't know. Okay. All right. So you've got supposedly an innocent man. And I'm thinking they're going to give me my clothes and let me walk out the front door. Bullshit. They put me back on those buses. I had to go back to the holding cells, back on the bus. And this is Friday morning. I am declared a free man, that I am free to go. So I go back in there, and I'm sitting in my bunk all day Friday. And I'm thinking, when are they letting me out of here? Because name after name after name kept coming over. Hey, Smith, Jones, roll it up. People waiting by the door, released. People waiting by the door and released. I'm free, and I'm still not being released. And then that sheriff came back in the afternoon to get me. He says, we're going to do a follow-up. The doctor wants to do a follow-up and see how you're doing. And I said, well, I was in court today. Now we're standing. Okay, so get this picture. This dude's bigger than me. I'm looking up. He's on that side of the door. I'm on this side of the door. He's telling me I can step out of the door and go with him to the medical system. And I said, well, you know what? I don't want to waste your time because I was in court and they said I'm free and I'm going to be released. And he said, oh, that's great. That's great. So you don't want to go? I said, no, I don't see the need to, because any minute they're going to call my name and I'm going to be released. So I turned around to walk away and something hit me. It's like, I couldn't leave. I turned around, went back to him. I said, hey, wait a minute. I looked at him right in the eye and I said, I want you to know you're the best piece of humanity I have seen in this jail and in this system. You treated me like a human. This 6'4" sheriff began to cry right in front of me. And he was in tears because I gave him some basic respect. Okay. And he said, well, I wish you the best, and I hope I see you on the way out. I said, I do too. So I went about my day, afternoon whiles away, evening whiles away. People are coming into the jail. People are leaving the cell, that kind of stuff. Midnight, Friday at midnight, 14 hours after I'd been declared a free man, at 1 o'clock in the morning, after 1 o'clock in the morning on Saturday, finally, the announcement comes over the loudspeaker. Hey, Wilson, roll it up. I didn't flinch. I grabbed my mattress. I grabbed my towel. I grabbed my plastic utensils that I'd been used for eating all week long. And I went and stood by the door. And when it was apparent that I'm leaving now, all those badasses, all those hard asses, all those roughneck people, men that I thought could kick my ass at any minute on Monday, they all came by and shook my hand and wished me the best of luck. And that's when they autographed my book. That's when Randy asked me to contact his dad. That's when standing in that line, Righteous promised me a free tattoo. And on and on and on. They loved me. And they demonstrated it. And they treated me like a human. Because that's what I gave to them. So they take me outside and they run me through the exit process. Again, I carried my book, which I never should have. This book stayed with me from the beginning to the end. Carried it all the way, never gave it up. And so now here I am. I have been thrown out the front of the jail at 2 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday in the middle of bumfuck nowhere. No cell phone, no money, no nothing. Okay. And while I'm standing out there, they had also released some of the inmates from the female side of the jail. There's a men's jail on one side, a women's jail on the other. And there was a young lady that walked up to me. She just looks at me and she says, "What are you doing here?" I said, "I'm sorry, I just got released." She says, "No, what are you doing here? Why are you here? You don't belong here. You're not one of us." And I said, "Well, they released me. Can I borrow your cell phone?" And she said, "Absolutely, you can borrow my cell phone." And so I called Beth, told her where I was, and she came and picked me up at 3 o'clock in the morning out in the middle of nowhere after a 5-day excursion into the bowels of the judicial system.
And they were the most decent, amazing beings to me.
Yeah. Oh, they treated her like a rock star.
It's like
You know?
they were crying
They're-
around the car. I was
they're-
like, "What's
yeah.
happening? What's happening?
Yeah.
What in the world?"
She pulls up and they all say, "Is that your wife?" "Yeah, that's my wife who I'm waiting on." And
They-
"Oh, we got to talk to her." And they run over and talk to her. And, you know, I had a posse, you know, at the jail.
So, okay, with everything that's going on in the world right now, all of this chaos, because that's what it feels like a cocktail of chaos. What are some of the things that we can do right now to change the energy of this stuff? Because
Well,
I do believe we can do this.
But here's another thing I want you all to grasp. And I emphasize the environment I was in. Because at this time, was I doing, yeah, I was doing sessions, wasn't I, Beth?
Yeah, you were doing
I had
something.
clients, yeah.
because I had to call them all.
Yeah, oh, that's right. Okay. So, for after I got home, I called my chiropractor after sleeping on basically, a rock for 5 days. My body was contorted. It was in shock. It was in panic. It was in trauma. My central channel had been broken. Every place, all five breaks were reactivated. I was a mess energetically. I was a mess physically, mentally, and emotionally. And I was suffering PTSD from being locked up and my freedom taken from me. And I was angry. I was mad as hell. I still am at the judicial system. There is no justice in the system that we have. It is broken, seriously broken in so many different ways. It's not even funny. So it took me months to clear all that stuff. I was constantly working on myself every day. I put the pieces back together and got myself, it took me about 6 months before my nervous system would calm down. Every time I saw a police officer around my car or behind me in any way, shape, or form, my body would freak. Okay. And so all of this, I'm saying all this to explain to you that it was a massive teaching piece for me. First of all, for me to get the information in this book, I needed some alone time or a me time or by myself time, because I was so busy working on clients that I would probably still not have made it through this book. And so my guides looked out for me and made sure I had this with me every step of the way, because there's valuable information in here. Second of all, it taught me the power, truly the power that I possess, because I shifted the energy I channeled, shifted the consciousness of that room and every man in it. Every man in it. I go from walking in worried about if I'm going to make it through the night without getting my ass kicked or my head smashed in. And there were fights. There were a lot of fights in there. People, testosterone's rolling, boredom sets in, people fighting over pencil on a piece of paper. And I go from that to standing there hoping I have enough time to say goodbye to everybody. Okay. So that's the other lesson. So I learned my power. I learned how powerful energy is. I learned how powerful vibration is. I learned how powerful it is to shift the energy of a situation and not just be at the effect of the situation. I also learned how powerful it was to be one-on-one connected with a human. That sheriff, 6'4", just as built like, he looked like Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he's standing there crying because I gave him some few kind words. And then all the people loaned me their cell phone and gave me their commissary food and everything else. Every one of those was a lesson. Every one of those was a massive lesson. And it opened my heart in ways that nothing else could have. So would I in retrospect, I wouldn't give that situation up for anything, because it taught me so much and made me who I am today. So even the hard times, we learn from, we benefit from, we grow from. But the answer is what I said. We need to channel the light into this world, and we need to channel it all the time. One of the things I set up was a series of codes and frequencies that gold light is always coming down through my channel and always coming out my heart chakra. That's the way I filled that room up constantly. Instead of sitting there focusing on it, I just said, well, let's automate this, because I'm all about ease. And so I set it up to automate it. So everywhere I went, the room was filled with gold light. Everywhere I went, I was treated very well, even in the medical system and with my lawyer, going through the staging of the different holding cells to get up to the courtroom. People, I wasn't in my jail. I didn't know them. I was brand new to them. They didn't know me from Adam. They treated me amazing, treated me with respect. They treated me like I was an elder of the community. So I shifted the situation because I took control of it. I was not a victim. I was not a victim. I still wasn't free. I couldn't walk out. I couldn't get in my car and drive away, but I wasn't a victim. So that's the way you fix this world too. Channel the light. And you get enough people channeling the light, you get enough people shifting the vibration, we change the world. I firmly believe, and I know in my bones, that the way you change this world is through a shift in consciousness, not through voting in the next corrupt politician, not by protesting, not by smashing out windows, not by hanging the next person that makes a mistake in the public square. You change this world through consciousness and vibration. That's it. And that can't be resisted. Not one man in that jail could resist that energy. Not one man treated me poorly after I began to channel that light into that jail cell. Couldn't stop it. Did that answer your question, Doris?
Yes, my dear, that really, that answered the question. We were talking about, all the stuff that's going on in the world, and it does sometimes feel like we are at the effects of, energetically, even if you hear that stuff.
Yeah.
And
well, here's what I want you to understand. The equivalent, okay, that television being on 7x24, the lights being on 7x24,
yeah,
someone chattering and yammering and talking and laughing or playing a game 7x24 while I'm trying to sleep. Every bit of that was distraction. It was distraction. And that's a very fine distinction, because I could have laid in my bunk and tried to listen to what they were saying. I could have gone over and tried to play, they had a few board games in there, and try to play a board game with somebody, or I could have sat there and watched TV. That was all distraction. That stopped me from being in control of me and stopped me from channeling that light into that jail. Okay, distraction. Joe Biden, Donald Trump, Daryl Chauvin, this young lady who lost her life this weekend, every bit of that is distraction. Every bit of it is distraction, and it takes you away from being the creator that you came here to be. And when you're focused on the bullshit of this world, your energy's there, and it's not channeling this light and changing the world. And that's what they want. That's what they want.
Yeah.
They are overwhelming us with distraction. Every damn day, something new. We're going to pack the Supreme Court. We're going to add DC as a state. We're going to raise your taxes. Every day is something new, and every day is just another distraction. And every day you sit on Facebook, every day you sit on Twitter, every day you talk to your neighbor, every day you watch CNN, that time is not being spent raising the vibration of the planet. And they win. They win.
Yeah. Yeah. That's how we respond to it.